Have you ever wondered why some individuals, organizations, or countries achieve greater success while others struggle to achieve it? Now, critical to the success of both people, organizations, and nations are the values that they adopt. And values have always been the key predictors of success for individuals, organizations, and countries. Now, values influence actions, and these subsequent actions help determine life's outcomes, both in terms of happiness and success. Now, today, I wish to share life lessons of two small countries, namely Singapore and Nauru, both of which gained independence around the same time. Now, ironically, Singapore, with absolutely no natural resources, moved from a poor nation to a rich country, while Nauru, despite being blessed with rich resources, moved from a very rich country to a country reeling under poverty, obesity, and ill health. The Singapore model of success provides valuable lessons on mapping core values like honesty, righteousness, discipline, unity, and hard work, while the Nauruan failure highlights the ills of greed, extravagance, and indiscipline. Now, when Singapore gained independence from Malaysia in 1965, the tiny country was plagued with poverty and unemployment. One third of its population lived under the slums. With no natural resources, Singapore's economic prospects were looking very bleak. Now, the country's savior came in the form of its first Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, who set about transforming Singapore from a third world country to a first world country. Now, the secret of Singapore's success is truly a life lesson if any country, organization, or individual needs transformation. Mr. Kishore Mahbubani, a distinguished fellow from the Asia Research Institute, shared the secret of Singapore's transformation through an acronym called as MPH: meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty. The first one, meritocracy. Meritocracy simply means you select the best people to run your country. A society founded on meritocracy makes allocations in terms of resources and opportunities on capability and effort, not on race, gender, or family connections. Singapore enabled the young, regardless of their background, to hope, to aspire, and to achieve. And as a system, it recognized talent and ability over wealth and circumstance of birth and motivated its people to work very hard. The second pillar is what is known as P, and it stands for pragmatism, where its approach was based on outcomes rather than ideology. It puts its people at the center of its development policies by providing to its people good education, health, housing, employment, and clean environment. Now, the best definition of the word pragmatism was given by a Chinese leader called as Deng Xiaoping. Now, according to him, it does not matter whether a cat is black or white. If the cat can catch mice, it's a good cat. In the same way, it doesn't matter what your ideologies are. If it works, go ahead and use it. So Singapore was pragmatic, and they followed some policies that were capitalist, some policies that were socialist, and mixed them up, and they were not bound by any ideology. Now, the third pillar is H, what is known as honesty, and it's the hardest to practice and achieve. What has brought most individuals, organizations, and third world countries down, and what has led to their failure in development has been corruption and dishonesty. Now, a key element in Singapore's success is its corruption-free governance. Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew adopted a total approach to enforcement and dealt with major and minor cases of public and private sector corruptions, regardless of the amount, rank, or status of the person under investigation. Now, the same process and procedure applies to everyone being investigated, including top ministers and chief executive officers of major companies. Both the bribe giver and the bribe takers were considered as equally culpable according to the law. Anyone found guilty of a corruption offense was punished regardless of his or her position, status, or political affiliation. And this rule of law and governance acted as a source of attraction to foreign investors to come and do business in Singapore. Now, the fourth pillar of Singapore's success was learning from other countries' success and failures. Thus, instead of reinventing the wheel, which is unnecessary and expensive, the policy solutions selected would usually be adapted and modified to suit Singapore's context. The reliance on what would be called as emulation and borrowing of policy ideas and solutions from other nations is an important strategy adopted by the government to deal with their problems. Now, take for example Singapore's Changi Airport, which is recognized as one of the best airports in the world today, provides a very good illustration of this strategy, as a team of officials was sent initially to several countries to examine the best and the worst airports with an aim to building an airport which would be better than the Netherlands Schiphol Airport, considered to be the best airport then, and avoiding the problems faced by the New York's Kennedy Airport or the Heathrow Airport in Britain. And finally, the fifth pillar of Singapore's success was its focus on national unity, which helped bring peace and harmony to their nation. A nation cannot prosper if the people are not united. From the very beginning, Singapore's founding fathers believed passionately in the vision of a multiracial society. Friends, yet another important life lesson we can learn from the other small country, Nauru. Now, the third smallest island nation in the world is a bare 21 square kilometers, and it gained its independence in 1968, just 3 years after Singapore. Now, long before humans discovered the island, the local bird species used this island as a restroom and excreted its poo here for millions of years. Now, the bird droppings, also called as guano, form rich phosphate deposits that covered most of the island. Now, phosphate was a key ingredient for agricultural fertilizers, and a few decades ago, this island was listed as the world's richest country while it was a major phosphate exporter. But as resources exhausted, the national system started to collapse and fail. With a population of approximately 10,000 people today, it's one of the poorest countries in the world, and no one wants to live there. Now, back in the glory days of 1960 and 70, almost the entire country was strip mined of its valuable resources, which was packed and shipped off to be used as fertilizers around the world, despite knowing that the supplies of phosphate would run out within a generation. Now, in the years post-independence, Nauru had the second highest per capita GDP in the world, just behind oil-rich Saudi Arabia. On paper at least, Nauru became wealthy over the next 2 decades. The government did not tax incomes, provided free education and healthcare. But in 1975, the Nauru Phosphate Royalties Trust was valued over 1 billion Australian dollars. The government then bought cruise ships, aircrafts and overseas hotels, while politicians were known to charter flights to shop and go on vacations abroad. While leisurely driving around the country would take only about 15 minutes, some citizens even had prized possessions of sports cars. But what really happened was the resource curse bit, and really bit hard, and the money was soon gone, squandered by a series of corrupt and incompetent governments who found extravagant and spectacular ways to lose the country's wealth. A combination of greed, mismanagement, and gross incompetence is what termed Nauru today as the country that ate itself and brought it to collapse. Now, according to WHO, as of March 2020, the island of Nauru was the most obese nation in the world, with obesity affecting 70% of its adult population. It was also considered as a nation with the highest rate of type 2 diabetes in the world, with over 40% of its inhabitants affected by this condition. This was the result of high imports and preference for cheap processed foods from Australia and New Zealand, while their traditional fish and garden diets were replaced with cheap processed foods. The story of Nauru's disaster was a tale of epic mismanagement and greed. Friends, what are you guided by? And why do you do what you do? Like countries, your values too form the foundation of your life. They dictate the choices you make and determine the direction that your life begins to take. Your values will influence your decisions related to your relationship, your career, and other activities you engage in. Understanding your most deeply held beliefs form the foundation for creating a life that brings you happiness, fulfillment, success, and even joy.